The door flew open like a gunshot in a silent room. And there he was, my little brother Thomas, frozen in the threshold, his backpack slipping from his shoulder to the hardwood floor with a thud that echoed louder than my pounding heart. Hunter's lips were still on mine, warm and urgent, his hands tangled in my hair, pulling me closer in that desperate way that made the world shrink to just us. I didn't pull away. Instead, I met Thomas's wide-eyed stare with a defiance I didn't know I had, because in that split second, the secret I'd buried for years cracked wide open. And damn if it didn't feel like freedom. That was the night everything in our sleepy corner of suburban Ohio unraveled. The kind of unraveling that starts with a kiss and ends with a family splintered like Old Barnwood under a storm. I'd always thought my biggest fear was Dad finding out. His Bible-thumping rants about family values during Sunday dinners. The way he'd grip his fork like it was a weapon whenever the news mentioned gay marriage. But it was Thomas, all of 15 and awkward as a colt, who walked in on me and Hunter in my bedroom, the air thick with the scent of rain-soaked earth from the open window and the faint musk of two boys discovering what it meant to want each other. Hunter bolted upright first, his face flushing crimson under the desk lamp's harsh glow, stammering something about just talking. Man, but I stayed put on the edge of my bed, sheets twisted around my waist, because pulling away felt like lying, and I'd done enough of that to last a lifetime. Thomas didn't scream. He didn't run. He just stood there, his sneakers rooted to the spot, those hazel eyes, mirror images of mine, thanks to Mom's side of the family, darting between us like he was piecing together a puzzle he'd suspected was there all along. "Alex," he whispered, voice cracking on the single syllable, and it hit me harder than any punch. This wasn't just my secret anymore. It was his, too, by proxy, by blood. Hunter grabbed his hoodie from the floor, mumbling apologies as he edged toward the window like he could Houdini his way out. But I waved him off. "Stay," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "Thomas, sit down. We need to talk." He did, eventually, perching on the desk chair like it might bite him, his fingers twisting the hem of his band tee, some indie rock group I'd turned him on last summer. Hunter hovered by the wall, looking like he'd rather melt into the posters of classic cars I'd plastered up to hide the hole in the drywall from that fight with Dad 2 Christmases ago. The room felt smaller than ever, the ceiling fan whirring lazily overhead, stirring the humid July air that clung to our skin like regret. I wiped my mouth with the back of my hand, tasting the salt of Hunter's lip gloss. Yeah, he wore that cherry-flavored stuff from the drugstore. A little rebellion against his quarterback image, and leaned forward, elbows on knees. "You gonna freak out?" I asked Thomas, keeping it light, like we were discussing who ate the last Pop-Tart. He shook his head, but his knee bounced like a jackhammer. I knew something was up. You've been weird lately. Sneaking out, texting all night. His gaze flicked to Hunter, then away, fast as a minnow. "Is he your boyfriend?" The word hung there. Boyfriend. Simple and loaded. The kind of label that could get you disowned in our house. Hunter let out a nervous laugh, rubbing the back of his neck. "Kinda. I mean, if Alex wants." I shot him a look, the one that said, "Shut up before you make this worse." And he clamped his mouth shut. Thomas swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing. "Cool," he said, too casual, like he'd just commented on the weather. But his eyes were glassy, and I knew that look, the one that said he was holding back a flood. We talked, or tried to. I explained it in bits and pieces. How Hunter and I had been circling each other since junior year. Stolen glances in the high school hallways of Elmwood High. That one bonfire party last fall where we'd ended up in the woods. Hands fumbling under flannel shirts. Hearts racing faster than the crackle of the fire. How I'd lied to everyone, including myself, telling Mom I was studying late when really I was parked in Hunter's beat-up Ford behind the old mill, kissing until our lips bruised. Thomas listened, nodding at the right spots, but I could see the wheels turning, the questions piling up behind his teeth. Hunter eventually slipped out the window with a promise to text, leaving us brothers in the dim light. The cricket chorus outside filling the silence. You ever feel like that? I ventured, hating how vulnerable it sounded. Thomas shrugged, picking at a scab on his knuckle. Maybe. There's this guy in my art class, Jamie. He draws these sketches of hands intertwined, and it makes my stomach flip. Boom, another secret spilled, like dominoes in the dark. We sat there till midnight, whispering about crushes and fears, the kind of talk that bonds you tighter than blood ever could. For the first time, I didn't feel alone in our cookie-cutter colonial on Maple Street, with its white picket fence and the American flag flapping lazily from the porch. Thomas was my ally now, my little shadow who'd always tagged along on bike rides to the quarry. And in that moment, with his tentative smile breaking through, I thought maybe we'd weather this storm together. But Ohio summers don't last forever, and neither did the fragile peace we'd stitched that night. The next morning hit like a hangover without the fun, sun slicing through the blinds. Mom's pancakes sizzling downstairs, the smell of bacon wafting up like a siren's call to normalcy. I dragged myself out of bed. Thomas already gone to his room across the hall, door cracked just enough to show he'd tossed all night. We didn't make eye contact at breakfast, both of us poking at our plates while Dad rambled about the Browns' chances this season, his voice booming off the knotty pine cabinets like he owned the airwaves. Pass the syrup. Son, he said to me, clapping my shoulder a little too hard, and I flinched, wondering if he could smell Hunter on me, that faint cedar cologne mixing with the coffee grounds. School was a minefield. Elmwood High, with its red brick facade and echoing lockers, felt like a pressure cooker on the first day back after summer break. Hunter avoided me in the halls, ducking into the bathroom when I rounded the corner. His text from Dawn, a single sorry ABT last night. You okay? Burning a hole in my pocket. Thomas stuck close, though, slinging his backpack over one shoulder and matching my stride to homeroom. He'll come around, he muttered, but his voice had that teenage waver, the one that said he was as scared as I was. By lunch, the whispers started. Small town like ours. Rumors spread faster than wildfire in dry cornfields. Someone must have seen Hunter climbing out my window, or maybe Thomas let a detail slip to his skate rap friends. I found Hunter under the bleachers behind the football field, chain-smoking a cigarette he swore he'd quit, his Letterman jacket slung over the chain-link fence like a discarded skin. Alex, man, this is messed up, he said, exhaling smoke in a gray plume that curled toward the overcast sky. Thomas is my best friend's little brother. What if he tells Coach? Or worse, my dad. He's already on me about scouts. I grab his wrist, feeling the rapid pulse under my thumb. Thomas isn't going to say shit. He's cool. We're cool. But Hunter's eyes were stormy. That blue-gray like Lake Erie on a bad day. And he pulled away. It's not just that. People talk. And I like you, Alex, a lot. But this, it's high school Armageddon. He crushed the butt under his sneaker, the spark dying in the gravel, and walked away, leaving me with the echo of his words and the sting of what felt like rejection wrapped in half-assed affection. Thomas found me there later, skipping his last period to sit cross-legged on the cold metal bench. He bailed, he asked, no preamble, handing me a crumpled pack of Skittles from his pocket. I nodded, popping a red one, strawberry, always my favorite, and the sugar burst on my tongue like a false promise. It's fine, I lied. Plenty of fish in the sea, right? But Thomas snorted, A sound so adult it startled me. Bull. Hunter's an idiot if he lets Dad's ghost story scare him off. Remember when we went to that Pride float in Cleveland last June? You drove us 3 hours just to see it. Said it was research for a paper. Liar. I laughed despite myself. The memory flooding back. The rainbow streamers whipping in the wind off Lake Erie. Thomas wide-eyed at the drag queens on stilts. Me gripping the wheel too tight on the way home. Terrified we'd get caught, with the glitter still stuck to our shoes. That trip was my first real act of rebellion. A secret outing to dip our toes in a world Dad would call the Devil's Parade. Thomas had begged to go, claiming boredom. But now I wondered if it was more, if he'd felt that pull too, the one that made your chest ache with questions no youth group could answer. That afternoon, we biked to the quarry, our old haunt. The dirt path rutted from summer rains. The water below shimmered like hammered sapphire, ringed by sheer limestone cliffs that swallowed echoes whole. We stripped to our boxers and cannonballed in, the cold shock yanking the breath from my lungs, washing away the grime of the day. Thomas surfaced sputtering, his hair plastered dark against his forehead. And for a minute, we were kids again, splashing and dunking until our fingers pruned. Race you to the buoy, he challenged, and I let him win, because that's what big brothers do. Floating there, treading water under the late sun, he turned serious. What if Dad finds out? About you. About us both. The us landed heavy, a confession wrapped in a question. I treaded closer, our legs brushing underwater. Then we face it. Together. No more hiding. He nodded, but his eyes held shadows, fears I recognized from my own mirror at his age. Little did I know, those shadows hid secrets darker than mine, ones that would test every promise we'd just made. Back home, Mom was in the kitchen, humming along to some old country tune on the radio, her apron dusted with flour from pie crusts. She was the soft counterpoint to Dad's edges, with her gentle hugs and everything's going to be all right mantras, but even she had limits, forged in the fires of a Baptist upbringing. Dinner was meatloaf and mashed potatoes. The table set with the good china because Dad had closed a deal at the auto parts plant, his version of celebration. Thomas and I exchanged glances across the peas, a silent pact, but the air crackled with unspoken tension. Then Dad cleared his throat, Fort pausing midair. Heard some talk at the shop today. About you boys and that Ramirez kid. My stomach dropped. Jamie Ramirez, Thomas's art class crush. The one with the sketchbooks and the shy smile. How the hell did Dad know? Thomas went white as the cauliflower, his fork clattering against the plate. Mom's eyes widened, darting between us. What talk? Honey, she asked, voice thin. Dad leaned back, his chair creaking under his bulk. Folks saying Alex here's been seen with Hunter Klein, acting all unnatural. And now Thomas hanging with that Jamie boy? Church group's concerned. We don't need that kind of influence in this house. The word unnatural sliced through me like a dull knife, slow and twisting. I gripped my napkin, knuckles blanching, while Thomas stared at his plate like it held the secrets to the universe. It's not, Thomas started, but I kicked him under the table, hard enough to shut him up. Dad, it's bullshit, I said, voice low and even, the Ohio drawl thickening with anger. Small town gossip. You know how it is. Mom reached for Dad's hand, her wedding ring glinting under the pendant light. Let's not jump to conclusions. Jim, the boys are good kids, but Dad's jaw set, that familiar furrow between his brows deepening. Good kids don't parade sin around like it's the 4th of July. We're fixing this. Youth group meeting tomorrow, mandatory. The rest of the meal passed in strained silence, the clock ticking like a bomb. Upstairs later, Thomas burst into my room, tears streaking his freckled cheeks. He can't make me go. I hate it there. They say we're broken. Alex, like God's rejects. I pulled him into a hug. His frame slighter than mine, bone sharp under the thin sleep shirt. You're not broken, I whispered, throat tight. None of us are, but as he clung to me, sobbing into my shoulder, I felt the first fracture in our family foundation, a crack that Hunter's silence and Dad's suspicions would only widen. And just when I thought it couldn't get worse, the real storm broke. Hunter texted me at 2 a.m., a blurry selfie from his bedroom, him shirtless in boxers, that crooked grin I used to trace with my fingertips. Caption, miss you. Come over. My resolve crumbled like dry leaves. I snuck out the window, the maple branches scraping my palms as I shimmied down, heart hammering with the thrill of trespass. His house was 2 blocks over, a ranch-style split level with aluminum siding peeling at the edges, the kind of place that screamed working-class dreams deferred. I tapped on his window with a pebble, and he yanked it open, hauling me inside like we'd done 100 times before. We didn't talk much at first, just collided in the dark, his mouth hot on mine, hands mapping familiar territory, the dip of my collarbone, the curve of my hip. The room smelled of Axe body spray and stale pizza, posters of Tom Brady and Metallica peeling from the walls. I'm sorry, he murmured against my neck, breath ragged. I panicked. Dad's been on a tear about college scouts, saying no one's going to want a queer on the team. Queer, the word he spat like venom, even as he pulled me closer. I wanted to call him on it, to say it didn't have to be a dirty secret, but his touch drowned out the protest, a temporary dam against the flood. We fell asleep tangled in his twin sheets, the fan oscillating lazy gusts over our sweat-damp skin. Dawn crept in pink through the blinds, and I woke to him staring at me, fingers tracing my jaw. We could run away, he said, half joking, but his eyes held a desperate glint. After graduation. California. L.A. Maybe. Surf and forget this podunk town. I laughed softly, kissing his knuckles. And leave Thomas? No way. He's got his own battles. Hunter's face clouded. Thomas? He's a kid. He'll be fine, but he wasn't. By the time I slipped back home, Mom was in the laundry room, folding towels with mechanical precision, her eyes red-rimmed. Where were you? She asked, not looking up. I froze in the doorway, the scent of Downy clashing with Hunter's cologne on my skin. Out. Running. A lie. Thin as onion paper. She sighed, setting down a fitted sheet. Your father's talking to Pastor Reynolds. About. Interventions. The word hung, heavy as an anvil. Interventions for what? Praying the gay away? I bolted upstairs, slamming my door, only to find Thomas curled on my bed, knees to chest, a fresh bruise purpling his cheekbone. Dad, he whispered when I touched it, flinching. After you left. He grabbed me, said if I'm like you, he'll send me to that camp in Kentucky. The one where they fix boys. Rage boiled up, hot and blinding, my father, the man who'd taught me to throw a curveball, now marking my brother like cattle. I pulled Thomas up, checking the swelling. He hit you? For what? Liking a boy. Thomas nodded, tears spilling. I told him about Jamie. Thought maybe honesty. But he just yelled about hellfire and how Mom's family never raised no faggots. The slur landed like a slap, even secondhand. I paced the room, fists clenched, the posters blurring in my vision. This ends now. We're telling Mom. All of it. Thomas grabbed my arm, panic flaring. No, she'll side with him. Always does. But I was done hiding, done letting fear dictate our lives. Downstairs, Mom listened in the kitchen, perched on a stool, her coffee going cold as we spilled it. The kisses, the crushes, the ache of loving in a world that preached hate from the pulpit next door. She didn't cry, didn't rage, just reached across the Formica table, covering our hands with hers, calloused from years at the diner, warm as fresh cornbread. "My boys," she murmured, voice thick. "I've known, Alex, since you were 14, bringing home those books from the library, Whitman, wasn't it? Leaves of Grass. And Thomas, with your drawings hidden under the mattress." We stared, stunned. She'd known and said nothing. "Your father. He's scared. Lost his brother to AIDS in the 80s. Never talks about it, but broke him. Thinks if he prays hard enough, it'll skip you too." The revelation cracked something in me. Not forgiveness, not yet, but understanding, raw and jagged. Dad came home that night to find us waiting in the living room. Mom flanked by her sons. The TV muted on some infomercial. He took one look at Thomas's face, the bruise blooming like an accusation, and deflated, shoulders slumping under his Carhartt jacket. "What have I done?" he rasped, sinking into the recliner. We talked, or shouted, really, hours bleeding into the night, voices rising and falling like the Ohio River in flood season. Dad's grief poured out in fits, Uncle Ray's laugh. The hospital bed in San Francisco, the funeral where no one from home showed. "I can't lose you boys too," he admitted, voice breaking. Not to that. It wasn't absolution. He didn't hug us, didn't say "I love you" anyway, but he agreed to family counseling. The pastor swapped for a secular therapist in Columbus, small steps on cracked ice. Hunter, though, he pulled further away, dodging my calls, showing up at school with a new girl on his arm. Some cheerleader named Becca with bleach blonde hair and a laugh like tinkling glass. "It's easier this way," he texted once. A gut punch in pixels. Betrayal. Sharp as betrayal always is when it's wrapped in cowardice. Thomas threw himself into art. Sketches of intertwined figures filling his sketchbook, abstract enough to hide in plain sight. But I knew. We became each other's anchors. Biking to the quarry after school, skipping stones, and dreaming aloud about escape. Art school for him in Chicago. Me studying engineering at OSU. Hunter a fading Polaroid in the rear view. But secrets have a way of festering, and Thomas's hid thorns I never saw coming. One crisp October afternoon, leaves crunching underfoot like brittle bones. I came home early from study group, Hunter's ghost still haunting the empty passenger seat, and found Thomas in the garage, huddled over his phone, shoulders shaking. "What's wrong?" I demanded, dropping my bag. He looked up, face ashen, and shoved the screen at me, a screenshot of text from Jamie. "You're cute, but I don't swing that way. And your brother's drama? Too much. Stay away." Thomas's voice was a whisper shard. He outed me to the whole art club, said I came on to him. Now everyone's laughing, calling me Tommy the Fairy in the halls. The injustice roared through me, a freight train of fury. Jamie, that soft-spoken kid with the gentle hands, twisting kindness into a knife. I wanted to storm the school, demand apologies, but Thomas curled smaller. "It's my fault. I trusted him. Like I trusted you not to tell. Me, the accusation stung." "What the hell? Thomas? I've had your back since day one." He surged up, eyes blazing through tears. "Have you? Or is it all about you and Hunter? The perfect big bro, saving his gay little shadow while you sneak around like nothing's changed." The words eviscerated, exposing the raw underbelly of our bond. Resentment I'd ignored. Assuming blood made us unbreakable. We fought, ugly and unfiltered, accusations flying like shrapnel, me calling him ungrateful, him hurling back that I treated him like a sidekick, not an equal. "You don't get it," he yelled, voice echoing off the rafters. "I'm 15. This isn't a phase. It's my life. and you're too busy chasing tail to notice I'm drowning. I stormed out, slamming the door so hard the windows rattled, pedaling furiously to the quarry, the wind whipping tears I wouldn't admit to. Hours later, guilt dragged me home, the sunset bleeding red across the sky like an omen. The house was quiet, too quiet. Mom's car gone, Dad at the plant's night shift. Thomas's door was ajar, bed empty, a note scrawled on notebook paper. Gonna clear my head. Don't worry. Panic clawed my throat. I called his phone, straight to voicemail. Hunter's too, for good measure, but it rang out in the void. That's when I saw it, his sketchbook, left open on the desk, pages fluttering in the draft. The final drawing, a cliff's edge, two figures plummeting hand in hand, labeled us against the world. My blood iced. The quarry. He was at the quarry. I tore out on my bike, legs burning, lungs screaming, the path a blur of gold and crimson foliage. Dusk swallowed the light as I crested the rim, the water below a black mirror. And there, silhouetted against the fading sky, Thomas on the ledge, toes curling over the drop, wind tugging at his hoodie like greedy fingers. Thomas! My shout ripped the air, raw and desperate. He turned, slow as a dream, face streaked with dirt and despair. Go away, Alex. Just. Let me fall. The words were a blade to the gut, but I inched closer, palms out like approaching a spooked deer. No. Talk to me. Please. He laughed, bitter and broken. Talk, like how you talk to Hunter, or Dad. Everyone leaves. Alex. Everyone. I dropped to my knees, gravel biting through my jeans, close enough to see the tremble in his frame. I'm not leaving. Not ever. I screwed up, push you aside when you needed me most. But you're my brother. My heart outside my chest. Remember the pride float? You said it felt like home. That's us. We make our own home. Tears blurred him. But I kept talking, spilling everything. The fear that choked me at night. The love for Hunter that terrified me more than Dad's fists. The pride in Thomas's quiet strength. His art that captured truths words couldn't. He wavered, the edge crumbling under his heel, and lunged back into my arms. We collapsed together, sobbing on the cold stone, the world narrowing to the rise and fall of our breaths. I thought I'd lost you. I gasped, holding him like he'd dissolve. Never, he whispered. But promise, no more secrets. I nodded, sealing it with a fierce hug, the stars pricking awake overhead like witnesses. Hunter showed up the next day, uninvited, our front door with a bouquet of wilted daisies from the gas station, his version of atonement. But Thomas answered, chin high, and said simply, we're done pretending. For us, Hunter's face crumpled, the cowardice he'd worn like armor sloughing off. I get it, he muttered, turning away. You deserve better, and for the first time, I believed it. Winter clamped down on Ohio like a vice, snow blanketing Maple Street in hush-white silence, turning our neighborhood into a postcard of forced serenity. Family therapy became our ritual, Wednesdays at 4 p.m., crammed into DR. Ellis's office with its beige walls and boxes of tissues strategically placed like landmines. Dad grunted more than he spoke at first, arms crossed over his Steelers hoodie. But slowly, cracks appeared, a halting admission about Uncle Ray's laugh echoing in his dreams. The guilt of silence during those final days. Mom cried quietly, her hand in his, bridging the chasm. Thomas sketched in the margins of his notepad, abstract swirls of blue and gold that DR. Ellis called emotional landscapes. Me, I talked until my throat ached, unspooling the knot of shame I'd carried since puberty hit like a truck, confusing crushes on baseball players for something sinful. Thomas thrived in the thaw. He came out to his art club, not with fanfare, but a quiet showing of his sketches, hands intertwined in ink and charcoal, titled Visible. The whispers died, replaced by awkward nods and one brave girl who slipped him a bi-pride pin for his backpack. Jamie transferred schools mid-semester. Rumor had it his parents yanked him after the fallout. But Thomas didn't gloat. Karma's a quiet bitch, he said over hot cocoa at the diner, marshmallows melting into sugary swirls. Mom worked doubles to cover the therapy copays, but she'd beam when we piled in for her famous chili. Dad even cracking a joke about tough love and tougher beans. Me and Hunter, we circled each other like wary dogs in the halls. Polite nods in cow class. A brush of shoulders in the parking lot that sent sparks skittering. He broke up with Becca before Thanksgiving. The news rippling through the rumor mill like a stone skipped on ice. I ignored the flutter in my chest, focusing on college apps. The acceptance letter from Ohio State glowing on my desk like a beacon. Thomas helped me pack, folding hoodies with military precision. You're going to kill it in Columbus, he said, but his eyes held a shadow, fear of the empty room across the hall. Spring broke gently that year, dogwoods blooming pink along the quarry path, their petals drifting like confetti on the breeze. Hunter cornered me after graduation rehearsal, the gym echoing with whoops and the squeak of sneakers on polished floor. Walk with me, he asked, voice rough. We ended up at the old mill, weeds choking the chain link, the river murmuring secrets to the willows. I was wrong, he started, kicking a rusted can into the underbrush. Scared shitless of Dad, of scouts, of everything. But losing you? That's worse. His hand found mine. Tentative. Calluses rough from football grips. I didn't pull away. Prove it, I said. Simple as that. He did. In fits and starts. Showing up to therapy family sessions as my friend, enduring Dad's side-eye. Driving Thomas to art shows in Cleveland. Blasting indie playlists to drown the awkward. It wasn't fireworks, more like embers. Steady and warm, building to something real. Our first real date was the county fair in August. Cotton candy sticking to our fingers. Ferris wheel creaking under our weight as we kissed at the top. The midway lights twinkling like fallen stars. Thomas spotted us from below, wolf whistling with his new boyfriend, a lanky poet named Eli from the community college lit club. Get a room, he yelled. But his grin said everything approval. Joy. The echo of that night he'd walked in on us. Dad never fully mended. He attended one pride event with us. In Cincinnati, standing stiffly at the edges while Thomas waved a flag like a battle standard. Proud of you boys, he mumbled later, over burgers at Skyline Chili. The words gruff but genuine. It was enough, not absolution, but progress. The slow grind of love wearing down stone. Mom baked a cake, rainbow layers that tasted like victory, and we ate on the porch swing, fireflies dancing in the humid dark. Thomas and I still bike to the quarry on lazy Sundays, though now we brought Eli and Hunter, turning into a picnic with PB and JS and bad jokes. One evening, as the sun dipped low, painting the water gold, Thomas pulled me aside, away from the laughter. That night, he said, voice soft over the lap of waves. When you caught me, I thought it was over. But you saved me. Not just from the edge for myself. I slung an arm around his shoulders, pulling him close, the dock creaking under us. We saved each other. Little bro. Always will. He leaned into me, head on my shoulder, and we sat like that till stars pricked the twilight. Two brothers, scarred but whole, watching the world turn toward dawn. In the heartland of America, where secrets once buried us alive, we'd clawed our way to light. Not perfect, not painless, but ours. And damn if it didn't feel like home.